Dear listener, if you're like me, then every time you turn on your TV, you're guaranteed to see David Chang's face advertising a new show. It genuinely feels like every week, no matter the platform, no matter what kind of mood you're in, your algorithm is serving you up some sort of David Chang or David Chang related product. Because David Chang is now very much a Los Angeles based chef, and we've discussed him before on this podcast, Father Saul and I thought it would be fun, especially him being our LA Food Podcast television correspondent, to do a segment analyzing all of Chang's products, but with a special, very critical eye towards his new show, Chrissy and Dave Dine Out. So, let me start here. What's your historical opinion / relationship to David Chang and his products?
So I've historically been a fan, generally. I think the thing that I heard of Dave early on, I learned about him, I think, via Anthony Bourdain, who was, I think, a champion for Dave as he was coming up via Mind of the Chef and stuff like that. There were kind of two big things, though. And I'd heard of Momofuku, and I'd read a little bit of Lucky Peach, his magazine, for a while. The two things that really established Dave for me, though, as like a legitimately like high presence food culture personality guy was, one, the podcast series he did with Bill Simmons when he was opening Major Domo, which was really cool. Now Bill Simmons, we can he's a sports guy, whatever, but Dave came on and did like a series of 4 or 5 long podcasts as he was opening Major Domo, everything from making decisions about the side of the restaurant to the menu. You could hear Dave getting increasingly anxious, and it was just the coolest insight to how to open a restaurant, especially from like a very successful entrepreneur or restaurateur rather at the time. And that was really cool, and I learned a lot from that and liked Dave a lot. The other was Ugly Delicious, which I thought was one of the best new food shows, the most interesting food shows that it came out at the time. And really what defines Dave to me is a couple things. And we'll get into this as we dive into his current projects, but he's a guy with a lot of ideas, and some of them are really great, and some of them just don't work. and that's like but what I respect is that he's always trying, he's always pushing the envelope. Dave is not someone who, it seems, who really settles with the status quo. He's like pushing and pushing. I actually have his cookbook, Cooking at Home, here at home as well. I also am a patron of his Momofuku noodles, spicy soy noodle, very good, and his flavored seasoned salts, which I bought after we had the conversation about how much I hate flavored salts, which I totally forgot because I was so like suckered by the marketing. And we got him, and I was like, I don't like flavored salt. What are we doing? And I think we might throw those out. But yes, Dave has actually a larger presence in my life than I think I even realized.
I was gonna say, based on the amount that you've just talked about it, you are very much in the pocket of Big Dave right now.
His branding's very good. his product, some of his products are very good. When Dave tries something, I'm willing to try it. And of course, we've been to Major Domo. I think the night of your engagement party, if I'm not mistaken, that was a special dinner.
Yeah, no, I have a fond memory of that. For me with David Chang, I think I've had like a 180, then a 180, then a 180, and now 180 again. So where does that leave us at 720 almost?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Just doing my math there. Well, basically, I first heard of him when he was just coming up on the restaurant scene, and he had Momofuku and Noodle Bar in New York City, and he was sort of gaining this reputation for like being kind of like a against the grain kind of guy, right? Like, yes, he was kind of an iconoclast. He was kind of doing things in a way that was unexpected, doing very humble things, but in elevated manners. And I was very intrigued by him, very, very intrigued. Then I finally went to one of his restaurants in New York City, Momofuku Nishi, which was like this Italian / Korean fusion restaurant that he started. And I was like, what a perfect entryway into the David Chang universe for me as a young Italian boy, like to go try his odes to my culture, right? And I left that experience just like absolutely hating it. I hated that restaurant. Yeah,
really?
It was so I don't know what it was, but like I remember going, it must have been like 2015, 2016 or something like that. And the dish that was getting a bunch of like hype at the time was a cacio e pepe, quote unquote, that he made with like fermented chickpeas, which sounds interesting on its face, right? It's like trying to approximate the same flavor profile of cacio e pepe, but using this like ingredient that's salty but in a different way than pecorino cheese is. Dude, I had that dish. It was at a time when I was like a broke young professional, and I think I spent like $20+ on this tiny pasta dish that was extremely underwhelming. Plus, I remember being underwhelmed by everything else on the menu in the worst kind of way, where it's like this is just really gimmicky and not delivering on flavor. It's like all concept, no flavor and no
Yeah.
satisfaction. And I just walked away from that being like, dude, this guy is a hoax, basically. This guy is like a scam, to use my Smashburger take. However, I think I did another 180 on him later down the line when he put out his shows and I started listening to his podcast and I even read his book and I felt like I got a good understanding of the kind of guy he is. And to your point, he seems like the kind of guy that, yes, is going to have 100 different ideas. 90 of them are going to be shit and 10 of them are going to be good. And I just kind of resolved with, okay, that restaurant experience I had, that must have just been one of his bad restaurants, right? One of his bad ideas, right? And, funnily enough, that restaurant did end up closing and reopening as a straight up Italian restaurant and then closing again. But then the other, David Chang meals I've had, like our dinner at Major Domo, have been fantastic. I really enjoyed our meal there. I think he makes great food there. I have to say, though, recently, I feel like I've been doing a bit of 180 again on him, against him. And I think it's just based on the recent shows he's been putting out. And we'll get into them in just a moment.
Oh, we're gonna get into them. Yeah, I think I will say that you reminded me of another kind of moment where I found Dave Chang to be interesting, which is when the Nishi reviews came out, they were banned. Nishi was panned as like a bad restaurant, right? And Dave talked about has been pretty open about how difficult psychologically the experience was for him, and was kind of in the vein of the article that we just read from the New York Times, which Dave participated in, was very like open about the real like experience of trying to putting your heart and soul to a restaurant and it failing and how bad the reviews hurt. We should also note, I think here also, that Dave in his early days in particular was pretty well known to be a real asshole in the kitchen, and he's recognized that and had talked about the work he's had to do. But when we talk about kind of old standards of behavior in the kitchen, he was one of the the most famous personalities that still embodied that when he was coming up, of like a short temper, and like he has had to talk about how all the work he's had to do to get past that. So and that's also continued to like crop up as he's gone along here.
But that's one of the things that I actually respected about him. Like when I read that in his book about how open he was about that sort of past toxicity and all the work he'd done to get over that, that's one of those things that won me over, because I think in this day and age, like you don't often get a chance to like correct your behavior or to recognize it and to like say it yourself. And this isn't like some anti-cancel culture kind of thing. I just mean like it takes self-awareness, and not a lot of people have that skill. And I think he demonstrated that really well. So that's something I actually appreciate about him.
Yeah, no. Certainly, Dave is someone who kind of walks the walk when it comes, I think, to accountability to some extent. I will say his partner Peter Meehan at Lucky Peach has also been accused of like some bad toxic work environment. Peter featured prominently in Ugly Delicious. So there was certainly like this like initial bad culture that he came out of. I know people question whether or not he should be fully forgiven for that. I think he's been pretty honest and open, I think, about his shortcomings, and we don't spend too much time on this, but I think it's also important to know as part of his overall sort of persona and how he came up.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for being a Debbie Downer on the podcast. Look, he's got a lot of balls in the air right now, as we mentioned. He's got a podcast, he's got a restaurant, he's got multiple shows. But I think what would be most interesting today is to really dive into his show, Chrissy and Dave Dine Out. So, Father Saul, can you give us the overall premise of the show for those who have not seen it?
Yeah, I think it's relatively straightforward. Essentially, Chrissy Teigen, Joel Kim Booster, who's a comedian, and Dave basically go out to eat at a LA restaurant. Chrissy and Joel host a couple of famous guests for dinner, while Dave goes into the kitchen and basically interviews the chefs, learns about their process for making the dinner, and then comes out, and Dave basically splits his time between the table and kitchen. So it's kind of a mix of like a hangout show, almost like a podcasty vibe in a way, like a casual conversation between some famous people who, presumably you want to hang out with, and then Dave teaching you about food along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and critically, all 5 episodes of the season, which is now streaming on Hulu, are in Los Angeles. They're all at Los Angeles restaurants. So
Yeah.
to break it down real quick for folks, episode 1, they were at Pizzeria Bianco, and the guests were Jimmy Kimmel and his wife, Molly McNerney. Episode 2, they went to La Casita Mexicana in Bell, and the guests were John Legend. There was Camille Nanjiani and Emily Gordon. And then Dave Chang also brought his wife, Grace Chang. Episode 3, they went to Yangban in the Arts District, and it was an assortment of like family folks. Like one of the chef's brother is a famous actor who was on Veep, so he was there. Episode 4, they went to Providence with Simu Liu and Regina Hall, and episode 5, they went to Meals with Gannett with a few different actors, and then finally they went to Major Domo, Dave's restaurant with Alessandra Daddario, Randall Park. That is the gamut. Now, let's get straight to it, Saul. Did you like this show?
So I really liked the concept for this show, and I really liked a couple of the episodes. So as like a show, I hope this gets renewed, and I hope they do more episodes. I really enjoyed it. Wow, you're shaking your head. No,
I'm
legit.
I'm off.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is okay. Let me do my thing, because literally, I think it's like the ideal sort of setup for. Well, not I shouldn't say ideal. There's so many food shows out there, but I thought it was as a fundamental, a really good concept, and one that I really enjoyed. The key thing for the show to be successful is that the people who hang have to actually be good hangs. And Joel Kim Booster is someone that I thought did a nice job on the show. Chrissy was tougher hang for me. I'm gonna be honest.
Horrible.
A little bit tougher. But when the guests were really good, when Jimmy Kimmel and his wife came through, and then Kumail and Emily and John Legend came through in particular, I thought those were really fun episodes. I actually really enjoyed those, the first 2 of the season, and I was really hooked by them, because what's fun is that the conversation at the table isn't necessarily about food. It's about like funny stories and relationship stories and blah blah blah. You're learning more about people, and again, it really matters that 1, they're cool, and 2, you care about them a little bit, and it just so happens that like we're kind of there. I will say in the following episodes, it was pretty hit and miss. The other thing is the chefs who are at the restaurants are also real personalities here. I thought it was really cool to hear from Bianco. I thought it was really, Jeanette is awesome. Like in the Meals by Jeanette episode, she's such a great personality, even though I think that was a particularly cursed table of people that they had.
That was horrible.
That was a rough one. But no, the actual concept of the show I thought was strong, and I would just want to see it. When Dave's doing Dinner Time Live on Netflix, which I don't think we're going to talk about in detail. One of the Dinner Time Lives, which by the way, that to me is like a swing and a miss show. That one does not work for me at all.
Cancel it yesterday. That one.
Cancel it yesterday. It's painful to watch. Dave doesn't quite have that personality. But they had John Mulaney and Nick Kroll on for an episode of this like awkward live TV show. I'm like, yo, bring John and Nick to like dinner with Chrissy and Dave. That's the perfect environment for those guys, and take some of these randos out of here who are like really kind of annoying, typical Hollywood personalities. So long story short, I like the show. I want to see more of it. They just have to sharpen some of the guest list.
I mean, okay, I think that's a great point. The guest list is so critical in a show like this, and I think you kind of nailed it in your tee-up of the concept, where I think part of this was designed to feel like a podcast, right? It's designed to feel like what's great about a podcast, right? I mean, for the most part, you're listening to a podcast either to glean something new or learn something, right? Or to hang out with people that you think you would like to hang out with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot about parasocial relationships. My wife makes fun of me all the time because I feel like I say parasocial like 8 times a day. But the problem I had with this show is that it tried to approximate that feeling, but it did it in such a watered down way that it was basically like an imitation of what it feels like to listen to a podcast. Like the conversations are so spliced up, right? That you're basically just getting like, sound bites and snippets of conversations. You're parachuting in and out, and you never fully get to like sink into a conversation. Even the better episodes, and I agree with you, I think the Jimmy Kimmel one was the best one. And I have a theory as to why. But even that one, I felt like it left me wanting more, not in a good way, because I'm never going to get more. Meaning like it's not like a teaser where there's an option to get more. I'm never going to be at that dinner. I'm never going to be like in that setting. I'm always going to wonder what was said. Like it's basically It just feels like
Damn.
yeah, you're right. Like this is some New York Times level analysis, okay? Uh, I that's what really left me wanting from the show, and I felt like I was never getting it. And definitely as the guests got less interesting, that was like game's gone. You know, like
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
way this is going to be a good watch. I mean, especially that Meals by Gannett episode you just mentioned, a real shame because Gannett herself was fantastic.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's my other criticism of the show is that there's a very uneven like level of sort of participation that the chefs get. Some chefs got a ton of participation, like Chris Bianco, whereas the other chefs, like Michael Cimarusti of Providence, did not get so much. It wasn't so much about him and his backstory. I know that that's difficult. I know that it's personality based. I think what it does is it creates this environment where every single episode is talking about to entertainment people about their entertainment bullshit. And it's like, I can only take so much of that.
So it's funny. Yeah, your slightly unhinged desire to hear every part of of the dinner conversation, notwithstanding, I think I didn't have a problem with that in the slightest because you're getting like essentially what I said podcast in the highlights, right? You're getting the best clips, and what that requires is for there to be good clips, which is helped along when there are like cool and funny people at the dinner, right? So like I did not feel left wanting from like the Camille and Emily conversation or needing to hear more. I just enjoyed the clips. I was like, these are the funniest clips from this conversation. And one thing that might be true also is critical for me is I'm getting to know restaurants in LA that I haven't been to yet. Yangban is on my list, and I can't wait to check it out. And it's really cool. And Bianco, Pizzeria Bianco, I've not been to yet, and I really want to check it out.
Is that why
And
we're
so
going?
kind of, yeah. Actually, kind of, yeah. I think we like. I've wanted to go, but that episode, watching it, like, I was like, dude, let's just go. That looks so good. Actually, I think you're 100% right. I saw the menu, I saw the food coming out, I saw Bianco and Dave explaining it, and I was like, I want to eat that. And yeah, now we've got reservations at Pizzeria Bianco next time I come down to LA. And certainly Yangban is on my list for when my sister comes and visits, and we do a little birthday trip for her in August. So that's cool. I enjoyed that, and yeah, no, but I think I don't know. I'm surprised that you don't agree that if the guests, as long as the guests hit right, the Camille
No.
and Emily like funny stories, and the Jimmy Kimmel and his wife, and you're learning like things about them, and you're getting the best clips of the conversation. You're getting the sense of the menu at this place and the thoughts of the chef. I
Yeah.
thought that mix like worked really well for me.
I think the other piece of this is that, I think it was also a tough watch for people from Los Angeles, and I've actually heard this from
Sure,
other folks from Los Angeles, and that
gotcha.
is he's going to places that are extremely well known in Los Angeles. He's not
Sure.
going to spots that are under the radar at all. Like Yangban has been on every list. La Casita Mexicana was on like Jonathan Gold's 101 list before I could walk. Like, like it's literally been around and in the scene that long. And he's going there and basically like it felt like these lists were like New York people are telling us what's good in Los Angeles, and it's like they don't really
Ooh.
know. And for example, the way he teed up La Casita Mexicana, he literally was like saying stuff like, "You've probably never heard of this," or like, "You'd be so surprised to find this kind of a caliber restaurant in an industrial city," and it just felt so like treating Los Angeles like Epcot, and that really rubbed me the
No,
wrong way. That really
so
rubbed me the wrong way.
so this is interesting. This is like a key because remember, this is on Netflix. The audience is global, right? Like me, I had not heard of La Casita Mexicana, right? Mexicana. I mean, like I had not. So for me, from outside of LA, sure, you don't want your city presented in like its most Epcot version, but I think they did a decent job mixing up like old and new, small, like fine dining and
It was
casual. I
so
mean,
lazy. It was so lazy, dude.
no, I no
Literally,
no
literally. Okay, let me tell you why I think even the first episode, the Pizzeria Bianco one, was the best one. It's because those guys are all homies.
friends.
They're,
Yeah, I
they're
know.
all friends. It
Yeah.
was the easiest one to set up. Pizzeria Bianco, it's literally right next door to the Major Domo offices at the row in the same exact place. He just did it. They're friends. He goes there all the time. Showed up, right? The reason it was good is because they have the best chemistry, and that's what you want in a podcast setting, which this show tries to approximate. But Jimmy Kimmel also, they're all super close homies, right? So that's
Mhm.
why that one felt the best. But it was also a lazy choice. Like, no disrespect to Pizzeria
I don't
Bianco.
I think I fundamentally disagree. Like it's a proof. It's episode one. It's proof of concept, right? The whole season, 5 episodes. It felt. I will say it felt like a proof of concept season. a little bit, right? They could have easily put the show out for 12 episodes or 10, Netflix's favorite episode number right off the bat. Or sorry, Hulu. Sorry, Hulu. Hulu. I mixed up my Dave shows. It's on Hulu. It's still a broader audience than LA, right? It still is for people outside the city, and I think they still did choose restaurants that people outside the city went, hey, I want to try Pizzeria Bianco. That sounds fucking dope. I had no idea. I mean, I did have an idea, but others would. I have no idea this like nationally renowned pizzaiolo has opened a place in LA. So I think it functions on that level pretty well. And then the rest of it, to me, yeah, it's a little bit. The season felt to me like let's try these different options. Let's try these mix of guests, right? Let's try this mix of editing. Let's see how much Dave should be in the kitchen or not. They went to Major Domo of all places, right? Like you talk about lazy, like they went to like the actual Dave restaurant, which felt appropriate as given he's one of the hosts of the show, right? And I'm guessing you'd want to see his home base. What's his authority? And you see his restaurant. I think I disagree with you from an LA outsider's perspective. Fair. On the choices there.
And we'll talk about how we could improve this show. And I think you can already anticipate what one of my suggestions is going to be. But let's shift over to some of the more universal aspects then, right? Which is the hosts. Okay, what do you think of them and the sort of their ability to carry a show like this, which is so contingent upon how much you like the host, Dave, Chrissy, and Joel?
Yeah. So Joel, I like I said already. I think Joel brings like the exact right fun energy. Dave is funny because Dave is like, and part of the reason why Dinner Time Live with Dave doesn't work is Dave is socially awkward, man. Like Dave has a podcast. I understand that. Like Dave is not actually a great hang. Like there's like but he works, right? He works in the show because he's bouncing off the other personalities. But it's just a funny thing that I find where Dave is like kind of like an awkward dude. I find interacting as like a TV host. Man, Chrissy Teigen, I understand she's like on the title of the show. I understand that her presence, I guess, is she even still a big deal? Like, I guess we'll bring in other people, right? Like, in a sense, this is not just a Dave show. It's called Chrissy and Dave Go to Dinner. So I'm guessing part of the reason why they're starting so 101 with LA is because they're expecting 101 people from the Chrissy audience.
And she's pregnant, I think. So I think it was probably just easier for her to just be in LA. But to your point, dude, I think part of this was a little bit of a Chrissy Teigen rehabilitation tour. I mean, I'm not sure if you followed, but like she was probably one of the most like well-loved celebrities.
Yeah. I remember this. I was on Twitter in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, so she was like hilarious, doing amazing things. Like everybody loved her. But did you follow her whole bullying scandal?
There was a bullying scandal. There was isn't she using like a what is it called? Someone else is carrying their child. Is that
surrogate?
Surrogate. Yeah. I saw that. I saw that. Yeah. Even though she's also pregnant herself.
To me, the bullying scandal is what kind of mostly like made her kind of go off the grid a little bit, because she was, these horrible tweets resurfaced of her like saying some vile shit to people on the internet, like telling them to go kill themselves and stuff like that. When she's been kind of very vocal about the bullying she's received in the past and kind of was a bit of a, like, I want to say like ambassador for positive behavior on the internet, like kind of like doing like trolling the right way, if you will, when you get trolled.
Right.
But so she kind of went off the grid, and I've got to say this has been kind of one of her biggest forays back into society since all that. And to me, like, that's tough, man. It's tough when you're trying to ride off the coattails of your personality, and your personality right now is kind of in question to begin with. Plus, I think, frankly, she had a little bit of an opportunity to show us what she got, and I don't think she added a whole lot to the conversation. And that's not to say like you have to be good at speaking about food to be on a food show, right? Mm-hmm. Because I thought Joel Kim Booster was pretty horrible at talking about food. Like his descriptions were like, "This is good. This is so good." Like literally, he just resorted to like saying the word mouthfeel and laughing, right? Which is like,
all you need. But he was a good hang. That was what mattered.
But he was a good hang. But he was a good hang. You don't need to be good at talking about food. But she brought neither. She brought neither the food nor the good hang. So. You're right. It's tough because she's in the title, but if it could be Dave and Joel Dine Out, I think I'd be more likely to watch.
Yeah, and look, and hope. Look, if, early in a show, there's always learning, right? Hope, like maybe the dynamic or the feedback or whatever. Like the thing, what I found as we went along, actually by the end, even at the very beginning, she was very grating. When we watched them, like the last episode, we were like, she's fine, she's fine. Maybe it's just like a Stockholm syndrome where you just adapt to the tone. But it was like by the end, I was like, it's all right. And I think they were spending more time on the guests anyway, and they kind of like I think they put more on Chrissy early on, as of course establishing her as one of the faces of the show. So there's ways around it, maybe, but yeah, no, like look, at the end of the day, would it be better with another host? In my opinion, yes.
All right, well let's go down that route a little bit. What would you do to improve this overall show in season 2?
I mean, again, guest list, update, and then I'm trying to think of who I might replace a Chrissy with. The thing is this, I do think the marriage between entertainment and cooking works, right? So having Dave representing the culinary industry, having the other host be representing the entertainment industry, I think that marriage is like an Eric Wareheim, right? And we don't want to make it be a bunch of dudes doing the show, but like someone like that, like who has like familiar with food from a celebrity perspective, which to be fair, Chrissy does to somehow she's like, written a cookbook or whatever, but
Everybody's written a cookbook.
right, yeah. Like look, almost like Padma Lakshmi would almost be the best. Like not to like lean on an old standby, she'd be like the best, right? She'd be the best in that role, right? And so that's one thing. And then I think this is the guest list. I don't know how they pulled it together. Maybe like not everyone was willing to say yes just yet. But where was Roy Choi, right? Get Roy Choi in here, right? Get some other chefs at dinner as well as just like entertainment folks and diversity with like the diversity in terms of like the kind of people coming into the conversation. So you're not just listening to a couple like C-list actors, I'm sorry, like talking about their careers.
To that point, I think my biggest 2 recommendations to improve the show are: 1, go to different cities. Like I know that this is probably proof of concept and stuff like that, but just go check out a more diverse array of spots, preferably around the country, or just like, I don't know, do a little bit more homework in terms of like where you're going, because I genuinely think
why are you so mad about that? Like Yangban is a relatively, I mean, I only started hearing about Yangban in like the last year. Sounds really cool. Like Bianco is only in the last year. This is not like meals by Jeanette, like putting them.
Providence is so obvious.
But hold on. It's obvious in the sense that it's always top on the list. What's interesting is that when I saw Providence there, I was like, I know Providence is always top ranked, but you don't see it on TV shows. Not that I've seen. Like Bourdain didn't go to Providence, right? Like I don't see like other LA TV shows don't go to Providence. So I actually thought it was an interesting choice to mix in with the other restaurants that were on the list. You go to Jeanette, you go to Bianco, you go to Yangban, you go to Providence. That's actually an interesting mix of folks, La Casita, and you're still getting people into the door onto a table at Providence where many people, even in LA, wouldn't often have a chance to go, which I think is kind of interesting.
I just think it comes down to, if you're going to a city, there's always going to be people in that city who are disappointed with your choices.
Sure. Yeah.
Just save yourself and diversify cities. I think that's an easy thing to do. Now, the other thing I'll say is, like, I think it'd be more interesting with a diverse set of group of people at the table. Making it all entertainment leads to the same fucking conversation every time. Which restaurant did you wait at before you got your big break? What would you be doing if you didn't get your big break? Like that whole thing. Let's get some interesting folks across like sports. Get some fucking politicians on there. Like just make it interesting. Like we all, when you think about like your ideal dinner party, when you're like that party of like, who could you invite if you can invite anyone? You're not saying like 5 people from the entertainment industry. And my God, if you're not someone I want to hang out with personally, So to me, it's like, just diversify. Now, I've got a last question, because I do have to wrap this up today. Okay, we got things to do in the Servodio household. But what do you think the ceiling for Dave Chang is as America's food personality? Because I genuinely think he's trying to position himself as, let's see how far I can take this thing.
Well, I don't know how to rank ceiling, but I do think it's limited, right? And I also think Dave himself is more interested in trying interesting ideas. You don't forget Secret Chef, man. Secret Chef was a Dave Chang special as well.
Horrible.
You thought horrible. I thought kind of entertaining, but yes, not a good food competition show. But I think Dave is less like he's going to be the face of food. I mean, look, he is in a lot of ways, as we're learning from my own, like my food interactions or whatever. But what limits Dave is, like I said, I don't think he has quite the personability to be like a a Bourdain, really, right? Like he is too like a little too neurotic, honestly, and a little bit awkward to be like that in everyone's home, making them feel welcome. So, but what he will do that's interesting, like again, Ugly Delicious, and those unique concepts and those looking in places like flipping ideas on their head or trying out new stuff like this, whatever the criticisms are, is like food show that I can't super like. It borrows from a couple different things, but nothing's quite been executed like this. Like Tucci's thing to Italy had elements of this show, right? But not quite packaged like this. Secret Chef was completely out of the box. Dinner Live is like a huge risk, right? So Dave will continue, I think, to take big risks, and just like they always go. He said it literally on the last episode of the show. 10 ideas, 9 of them will suck, 1 of them will be great. I think his hit rate is a little bit higher than that. Credit to him, but yeah, he'll have like some that really suck. But he won't. I don't think he'll be like the face. I don't think he'll be like. I don't know if he can really break through entirely to like A plus list fame because he doesn't quite have the persona.
I'm not going to say anything on this topic because did you see the recent thing about like Io Adebiri talking about J-Lo and then them having to work together?
I think it's too late, man.
I was going to say, in the unlikely event that Major Domo Media ever has any interest in purchasing this podcast, I'm not going to say anything bad about Dave. So I just
you literally already did, though.
No, I Max Shapiro his content. I gave him constructive criticism.
Love it, man.
All right, bro, dude. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again in a couple weeks for Fantasy Top Chef.
Cannot wait.
Defending
champ.
Ready.
Coming home.
Get ready for a beating.
Take care, man.